Hi, I'm Bella, and today I'm going to walk you through exactly what is happening to your hair every time you wash it, the mechanics, the chemistry, the mistakes, and what actually changes when you do it correctly. This is not about which products you buy. This is about what you do with them. And it is going to change the way you think about every shower for the rest of your life. First, understand what you are actually washing. Before we get into what you are doing wrong, you need to understand what hair actually is, because most people have a fundamentally incorrect mental model of their own hair, and that incorrect model is the root cause of most of the mistakes. Your hair shaft has 3 layers. The innermost layer is the medulla, largely irrelevant to cosmetic hair care. The middle layer is the cortex. This is where the structural proteins live, where your hair gets its strength and elasticity, and where color molecules sit after you dye it. The outer layer is the cuticle, a series of overlapping scales, like roof shingles, made of dead keratin cells. Everything that happens when you wash your hair is happening primarily at the cuticle level. When the cuticle scales lie flat and overlapping correctly, your hair looks shiny, feels smooth, and retains moisture efficiently. When the cuticle scales are raised, damaged, or missing entirely, your hair looks dull, feels rough, absorbs and loses moisture rapidly, and is vulnerable to breakage. The entire goal of washing your hair correctly is to clean the scalp without destroying the cuticle. That sounds simple. The way most people actually wash their hair does the opposite. 1. You are washing your lengths. This is the first and most damaging mistake, and it is almost universal. Shampoo is a detergent system. Its job is to remove sebum, the natural oil your scalp produces, along with environmental debris, product buildup, and dead skin cells. Sebum is produced at the scalp. It travels down the hair shaft over time, but on most hair types, especially longer hair, the sebum never fully reaches the mid-lengths and ends. When you take shampoo and apply it to your lengths and ends, scrubbing it in, working up a lather, you are applying a detergent to a part of your hair that does not have significant oil buildup to remove. What you are removing instead is the hair's natural moisture and the surface lipids on the cuticle that help keep those scales lying flat. The ends of your hair are the oldest part. On hair that is 12 inches long, the ends may be 3 to 4 years old. 3 to 4 years of cuticle wear, heat exposure, and environmental damage. They are the most fragile part of your hair and the part that needs the most protection. And most people are scrubbing shampoo into them every single wash. Shampoo belongs on the scalp. Apply it to the roots, work it gently into the scalp with the pads of your fingers, not your nails, and let the rinse water carry the diluted lather down the lengths. That is sufficient cleansing for everything below the scalp. It does not need direct detergent application. Dermatologist Dr. Francesca Fusco, who has published on Scalp Health, has stated consistently that applying shampoo to the lengths and ends is one of the most common causes of chronic dryness and breakage in patients who believe they have a hair loss or damage problem. The damage was self-inflicted. 1 step into every shower, repeated thousands of times. 2. Your water temperature is destroying your cuticle. Hot water feels good. It is one of the genuinely pleasurable sensory experiences in daily life, and nobody wants to give it up. But what hot water does to the hair cuticle is a problem that compounds over time in a way that is very difficult to reverse. The cuticle scales respond to temperature and pH. In warm to hot water, the cuticle swells and the scales lift. This is actually useful at the beginning of a wash. Lifted scales allow shampoo to clean more effectively. The problem is what happens when you stay in hot water for the entire wash, condition in hot water, and then step out without closing the cuticle. When the cuticle scales are lifted, the cortex is exposed. Moisture enters and exits rapidly. The hair swells with water, and then as it dries, that swelling and contraction stresses the cuticle scales. Over time, repeated thermal cycling in hot water weakens the points where the cuticle scales attach, making them progressively easier to chip, crack, and break off entirely. Once a cuticle scale is gone, it does not grow back. The professional protocol is to shampoo in warm water, warm enough to be comfortable, not hot, and to rinse conditioner in cool to cold water. The cold rinse causes the cuticle to contract and flatten, sealing the scales down against the cortex. This is why hair that has been cold rinsed looks shinier immediately after washing. The light reflection off flat cuticle scales is fundamentally different from the light scatter off raised, damaged ones. 3. You are using too much shampoo. The lather has nothing to do with the cleaning. This is one of the most persistent misconceptions in personal care, and it is one that shampoo manufacturers have actively cultivated because it drives consumption. A rich, thick lather feels effective. It feels like something is happening. The cosmetic chemistry industry even has a term for this. It is called perceived efficacy. The consumer's feeling that a product is working, independent of whether it actually is. Lather comes from surfactants. The primary surfactants in most shampoos, sodium lauryl sulfate, sodium laureth sulfate, and their alternatives, produce foam as a byproduct of their cleansing action. But the foam itself is not doing anything. The cleansing is happening at the molecular level through the interaction between the hydrophilic and hydrophobic ends of the surfactant molecule and the sebum on your scalp. This happens whether there is abundant foam or almost none. The amount of shampoo most people use is 2 to 4 times what is actually necessary. A coin-sized amount for short hair, a quarter-sized amount for medium-length hair, and at most 2 quarter-sized amounts for very thick or very long hair. That is it. Using more shampoo does not clean better. It requires more water to rinse, which means more time with hot water on your hair, which means more cuticle damage from the thermal exposure. And if you do not rinse thoroughly, which becomes harder the more product you apply, residue left on the scalp disrupts the scalp microbiome and can contribute to the kind of buildup that makes your hair feel heavy and dull within a day of washing. The shampoo bottle says use a generous amount, because generous means you finish the bottle faster and buy another one. This is not a coincidence. 4. You are conditioning the wrong part of your hair. This is the mirror image of the shampoo mistake, and almost everyone makes both. Conditioner belongs on the lengths and ends, not on the scalp, not on the roots. The scalp produces its own sebum. It does not need additional conditioning agents layered on top of it. When you apply conditioner to the scalp and roots, you are depositing film-forming polymers, silicones, and emollients directly onto the skin and the newest, healthiest part of the hair shaft. This does several things, none of them good. First, it contributes to scalp buildup. Conditioning polymers do not fully rinse away. That is the point. They are designed to deposit. On the scalp, this accumulation can block follicles, disrupt the scalp microbiome, and contribute to conditions like seborrheic dermatitis in susceptible individuals. Second, it makes the roots look greasy and flat faster, which leads people to wash more frequently, which leads to more damage. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. The mid-lengths and ends, the parts of the hair that are oldest, driest, and most damaged, are where conditioner actually needs to go. Apply from about 2 inches below the root downward. Use a wide-tooth comb to distribute it through the lengths while it sits. Leave it on for the amount of time that actually allows the conditioning agents to interact with the hair surface, which for most rinse-out conditioners is between 3 and 5 minutes, not 30 seconds. A study published in the International Journal of Cosmetic Science found that panthenol and cationic conditioning polymers require a minimum contact time of 2 to 3 minutes to deposit at meaningful levels on the hair shaft. The majority of people rinse their conditioner within 60 seconds of application. They are buying a product, applying it, and rinsing it before it has done what it was formulated to do. Then they wonder why their hair is still dry. 5. What you do in the first 3 minutes. After washing is wrecking everything, you have just washed your hair. The cuticle scales are partially raised from the water exposure. The cortex is swollen with moisture. The hair shaft is at its most mechanically fragile state. Wet hair can stretch up to 30% of its length before breaking, but the bonds that give it that elasticity are weakened when saturated with water. And then most people take a towel and rub their hair, vigorously, back and forth across the length of the shaft. The friction from rough towel drying on wet, cuticle-raised hair is one of the primary causes of split ends and surface breakage. The terry cloth loops catch on lifted cuticle scales and physically chip them off. Under a microscope, hair that has been rough towel dried repeatedly looks like a damaged roof after a hailstorm. Cuticle scales fractured, edges lifting, gaps in the surface where the cortex is now directly exposed. The correct method is to take the towel, ideally a microfiber towel or a soft cotton t-shirt, both of which have smoother surfaces than terry cloth, and blot. Press sections of hair gently between the fabric to absorb water. Squeeze from root to tip. Do not rub in any direction.